Let me show you how these geometry nodes can be used to generate different urban solutions. I will demonstrate two sets of nodes, one for generating buildings and one for generating streets. Let us start with buildings. Apply the Geometry Nodes modifier to your input plane. Select the node group named Development Area. Specify the typology you want to generate. Select 0 for single-family houses, 1 for row houses, and 2 for blocks. Now it's time to experiment with the configuration. The placement depth indicates how far from the perimeter of the development area the building is situated. You can also adjust the building depth. It is possible to vary the shape of the block to create different atmospheres. Adjust the minimum and maximum number of floors for the individual buildings in the block, as well as their plot size. To break up the monolithic and closed shape, consider omitting several buildings either periodically or non-periodically. The modulo indicates the frequency of the omitted plots, while negative numbers indicate the frequency of those that remained. For random, non-periodic omission, you can choose the amount of buildings to be omitted and the seed of their position. Similarly, the user can choose between periodic or non-periodic setback with a randomized or uniform setback depth. In addition to the geometry itself, this setup calculates the number of potential residents, the floor area ratio, and the building coverage ratio. To review these figures, simply turn on the attribute viewer and insert the desired output. Open the spreadsheet editor. The attribute will appear in the viewer column. By default, buildings are placed along the perimeter of the input geometry. However, if the given development area is too small, or if you only want one row of buildings, turn on the One Edge option to avoid objects intersecting. The buildings will then align themselves along the longest edge of the polygon. When the user selects a detached or row typology, the following parameters can be controlled: placement depth, randomized setback, seat of houses to be instanced, roof shape, and more. You can choose the size and floor height of the property. These features can either be uniform throughout the development area or a mixture of different sizes and heights. Houses can also be scaled and rotated by the same factor or by different factors. Finally, as with the block typology, you can customize the omissions. The controls are basically the same for the detached and row typology. One difference is that you can't control the distance between the row houses. Another difference is that randomized rotation is not an option for the row type. Otherwise, the houses would just intersect. It is only possible to rotate them all in the same direction to some degree. Let's move on to the street. All you need as inputs are simple lines representing streets. It is important that the lines for each type of street are on separate layers so that you can control the elements of each type separately. The elements of a road include car lanes, cycle lanes, and footpaths, the width of which can be adjusted. It is possible to add more lanes or tree alleys. You can control the position, spacing, and height of trees. After watching this video, feel free to download the Blender files and experiment for yourself. You can use this script for your own projects. As long as the necessary inputs are provided, this setup can be applied to different contexts. Let me show you how I'm using it in my project for Irpin restoration. During Russian invasion, the majority of buildings here have been completely destroyed. After the liberation of the city, new housing has to be built from scratch. I identified several development areas, and I will be using different typologies around the site. Every development area has to be on its own separate layer. I apply the same geometry node group to development areas which are to possess the same features. This way, I am able to control them all at once. However, I want to assign different typology to several areas. To do this, I need to use a copy of the node group so that the parameters for different development areas don't override each other. By using this script, I am able to generate multiple variants of built structure for the same site in real time. Within minutes, I can create dozens of 3D models, which can help tremendously accelerate restoration efforts in Irpin. Thank you for watching this video. Major shout out to Pavel Oliva, whose library I have been using as a part of this script to generate the buildings of the block typology. Many thanks to Erindale and a vast open source community who share their work and knowledge to popularize Blender and make it easier for beginners like me. Hopefully, this script will be useful for some other enthusiasts out there.